Rowlands. Neil Hamilton.
I formally move the amendments down in my name. There is little that one could disagree with in what the First Minister has just said. Clearly, we are going to be in a very different world, administratively and legislatively, outside the EU than within it. And I will say this right at the outset, that there must be no going back on the devolution settlement, and the powers which have been devolved to this Assembly should not in any way be eroded or obscured by whatever happens as part of the Brexit process. It is a matter of law what has already been devolved to the Assembly, and certainly agriculture and environment are going to be very important powers for us to exercise in years to come. It gives us greatly enhanced power in Wales to make for ourselves an agricultural policy or an environmental policy which better suits our needs. And as the First Minister and indeed the Government's White Paper, together with Plaid Cymru, points out, there are many differences between the Welsh economy and the economy of the rest of the United Kingdom. In particular, there is, as we know, a trade surplus in goods between Wales and the EU, whereas for the rest of the UK, it's very much the other way round. But we can't see this purely in a Welsh context, because it is the United Kingdom which is going to be leaving the EU, not just Wales. And Wales has to see itself in the context of the United Kingdom, from which there are massive benefits in terms of fiscal transfers, which it would lose if we were to take the nationalist position and become an independent nation politically. That's not a dispute that we want to argue at length today. But what I want to say as a result of this debate is that the world is full of opportunities, and not least for our own country to take advantage of them. The First Minister referred to our amendment in relation to tariffs. We put this amendment down not because we want to move to a protectionist policy. We're a free trading party. We think that tariffs are a foolish way in which to try to protect your industries, because at the end of the day, all you do is to institutionalise inefficiency and make yourself less competitive in the world. There's a wealth of academic analysis which proves the truth of that. And so the figures which are mentioned in the amendment are not our figures. They're produced not indeed by a Eurosceptic body. They were produced by Open Europe, which is rather dispassionate and neutral on this issue. We're actually in favour of Britain remaining inside the EU. The net effect of the tariffs that we refer to reflect the massive imbalance in trade between Britain as a whole and the rest of the European Union. We have a £60 billion a year trade deficit with the EU overall, and if we were to revert to WTO tariffs in 2 years' time on account of the intransigence of the European Union, because the British government has made its position perfectly clear that it wants to see tariff-free trade, frictionless trade between Britain and the rest of the EU after we leave. But if the EU prevents us from doing that, then the impact will be felt more in terms of pounds on the European Union than it will be on Britain. And if tariffs are introduced, then the net impact will be as described in our amendments. We will be very much in pocket. Yeah, sure.
I believe the likely outcome for the people of the United Kingdom will be a tariff tax on goods.
It assumes rationality on the part of the European Union negotiators. I very much hope that we will not have. I very much hope that we will not. I have to say that the evidence of the last week is not encouraging, with Chancellor Merkel wanting to detach negotiations on trade from other issues that divide us. Is not sensible, given we have only a 2-year time frame within which to reach a trade deal. The gratuitous addition of Gibraltar to the negotiations is another irritant which is not likely to assist a sensible resolution of the arguments between us. But it must surely be massively in the interests of the EU, as well as for this country, for us to facilitate trade rather than to obstruct it. And given that for Germany alone we have a 20 billion a year deficit in cars, just in that one sector, then clearly it's in Germany's interest, as the motor of the EU, to use its weight and influence to achieve the outcome which will be mutually beneficial, one of free trade. And what goes for cars goes for all sorts of areas of trade between us, even in agricultural products, which the First Minister quite rightly refers to, because agriculture is a balkanised market all around the world. Even where we do have free trade agreements with other countries, very often agriculture is marked out as being different, and they remain subject to all sorts of trade restrictions. Even in the case of lamb, for example, we actually have a trade deficit in the UK in sheep meat, and therefore, although for Wales this is a massively important issue for agriculture because we export such a huge proportion of our production of lamb, in the UK as a whole, which will be negotiating for us, we have an opportunity to ensure a sensible outcome. I see the red light is on, and I've not been able to develop my argument because I was seduced by Rhiannon Passmore into going down an avenue which I hadn't intended to. But the main point I want to make is one that this is an opportunity for us and not a threat. It's a challenge, of course, but life is full of challenges. Any business worth its salt knows it has to change. Nothing ever stands still. Let us grasp this opportunity and make the best of it for the people of Wales.